And here we go. What is going on, everyone? It's Adam Rich out here just living the dream. Every day is a holiday, by the way. And do you guys realize how quickly time moves on, how fast everything just advances, how quickly things change? Like, have you stopped and thought about that? Think about technology, the way, how fast it keeps moving. Like, it goes so unbelievably quick nowadays. Like throughout the times, if you think about it, and throughout history, slowly things had to advance. One, I think a lot of it's because of communication. Like now you have people that as soon as you come up with a breakthrough, you can email it, put it on the internet, call somebody, tell someone. There's hundreds, thousands, millions of people around you all the time now. You have access to so much information. You can send so much information, like YouTube alone, like videos and text messaging and Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and emails alone, and everything moves so fast now. Technology is advancing so quickly. And I don't think people really even stop and think about that kind of stuff for the most part. I mean, I'm sure some do, obviously, but like I remember, man, I'm not that old. Like I know I might sound like talk like it or sound like it or whatever, but I'm not that old. I'm 35 years old. And I remember I remember there being basically nobody that had cell phones. I remember, and I was like old enough to remember it. When I got my license, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't drive around and be like, okay, I got an emergency phone. No, you had to look for a payphone. If you were out in public and you had to make a phone call, you either had to A, stop at somebody's house that you knew, or go to a stranger's and ask to use their phone, which was rare, but people did it. It was weird. And I mean, nowadays it seems super weird. Back then it was somewhat common, I guess. And, but no, man, like if you were stranded out in the middle of nowhere, you didn't have a GPS, you didn't have a cell phone, you didn't have any access to do anything really. It was literally like all the old horror movies that you would see where everyone was just had nothing. Like it was funny because if you think about the 80s and 90s horror movies, you didn't have people like out in the wilderness get stranded somewhere or something crazy happens and then somebody had a cell phone to call somebody. Like now when you see those types of movies, everybody's cell phone never works when they're in trouble. Everybody's cell phone service just shuts down the second they get in trouble. Back then, that wasn't even a plot. Like that wasn't even in the movie. That wasn't even a thought. Nobody wrote that into a movie like, oh man, they're out in the woods. We need to make sure that when they're stranded, their cell phones also don't work so they can't call 911. No, back in those days, you didn't have access to that. So like when you would see movies like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever, these people most times, it wasn't even an option to call for help. It was just, you better survive. You better hope that you survive. You better hope that Jason finds your friend first instead of you, and you have a chance to run and get away. Now, every movie, like every scary movie, like whenever somebody gets in trouble, all the time their cell phones have to not work. That didn't happen 20 years ago. Literally 20 years ago. Like 19, I graduated in '01, right? And when I graduated, I like around the end of my senior year, like the beginning of 2001, mid 2001, that's when I got my first cell phone. And around that time, that's when most people got their cell phones. Like it wasn't like I was just way, way, way behind. Like cell phones were almost non-existent. There were some people that had them, like rich people had them. I remember my older cousin had one, but he just gotten one like a year earlier. Like nobody really had them. I had a pager or a beeper, it was called. Most people probably have no clue. Like most people don't even really remember what that is, or most of the young kids now don't know what that is. This thing was a little contraption that somebody could send you, like you would have a pager number. Like it would be like a mobile number or a home line number. You'd have a phone number. Somebody would call it. But instead of it ringing and you picking it up and talking to them, it would just send you like what phone number was trying to get a hold of you. And then you could always type in, like it would tell you to type in your number for who to call back. And then just to be cute, like this was the infant version of emojis. and things like that. Like now you have the emojis where it's like a happy face or a peace sign or a 100 or whatever, and you include those in just to add effect, I guess, to make it, to customize your experience with texting. But back then, the best you could do is you would page somebody. They'd look at their pager. It would tell them what phone number to call back, and then at most it would say like 911, like it's an emergency, call me right away, or it would be 143, and that meant I love you. Just because the amount of letters in the name is what I remember. Like I was 1, love had 4 letters, so 4, and then you, Y-O-U, had 3, right? Now you got texting where people don't even spell things right. Like if you wrote I love you, it would probably be like the letter I, then L-U-V, and then the letter U. Like you can't even, like it's such a short, it's literally 8 letters total. And people can't even do that anymore. Like a lot of times people try to simplify everything, shorten it up. And it's just funny, man. It really is. But just in 20 years, we've gone from literally like almost nobody having a cell phone to now everybody's got cell phones, iPads, or tablets, I should say, in case you're not an Apple fan, and laptops. Like instead, back then I remember having a Walkman, or there was a Walkman first that had the cassettes, and then you had a Discman, and that was like the high-end coolest thing where you could put a CD in it. And these things were so bulky. Like now you have everything's on your phone, so you just have to plug it in and it plays everything. You got thousands of songs right there. Before, you had this bulky behemoth that had to fit a CD inside of it. And then you'd put it in, you'd hit play. Whenever you want to hear a different song, you had to physically pull this monster out and tap the buttons to do this. And it was just so inconvenient, but it was great back then because that was the best thing you had. Now, man, I got something in my eye. Now, you have so many things. Can't see. Technology moves so fast now, man. Like I remember in high school, there was barely any, that was like brand new thing was the internet. The internet was like super, like it was starting to become a thing to do your homework and book reports on the internet, like to search for things. And then they would even tell you, this is how much assholes they were back then, the teachers. They would tell you you can't quote like Wikipedia. Well, now you probably still can't use Wikipedia, but they would tell you like they wanted to know sources from books, not from the internet. Like, it was it was basically brand new. Nobody knew what kind of crap was on there, so it was like Wikipedia. You could really update it whenever you want. You could write whatever you wanted. But man, it was just great. It was such a different time because when you went outside, like, to go play with your friends, your parents were like, you better be home by the time the streetlights come on. And then the streetlights would come on, and you're like, dude, they're going to be screaming for me. They're not, and you're nowhere to be found. They can't get a hold of you. You didn't have a cell phone, especially when I was like 15. You didn't even have pagers. So it was wild, man. It was just a totally different time. And in such a short span of time, like almost half my life, there was no internet, no cell phones, no. I mean, it was just starting, right? So about half of my life was no cell phones, no internet, definitely no Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, none of those. Like, you had to actually physically try to talk to people in person and then get their phone number and then call them to talk to them in person. There was no texting. There was no Tinder. There was no, like, dating sites to go on. There was no live streaming. There was no GPS when you were driving. Like, you had road maps or you had MapQuest. I remember MapQuest when the internet was just starting. MapQuest was the best because you would have to type this thing out. Or all you would have to do is it would say you where's your start location and then where's your end location, right? And depending on how many stops and turns you might have to make at some point, because this thing would give you step-by-step basic instructions. You get out of your house, you pull out of your driveway, you go to the end of the street, you make a left. Then you go to the end of that street, which is, like 0.28 miles. then you make a right. Then you go on, then you follow that street down 2.3 miles, you bust a hot left. Then you go on down a quarter of a mile to the expressway. You jump on the expressway and go north, and then you take that for about 32 miles. And dude, you had to do that. And the funny thing is when you would type, all you would do, you would have to say your address and then the address you're going, and then bam, it was like 78 pages of directions that you had to look through. It was crazy, man. And now you have a GPS on your phone. Everywhere you go at any given time, you type in where you're trying to go. You don't even have to have the address anymore. You just have to have the name of something. Like, say you want to go to, Cedar Point or Six Flags. You just got to type in that and the city. All you have to know is the city. And sometimes you don't even have to know that, because if you're in like I live around Detroit area, right? So say I want to go to like a Lions game, and their home stadium is Ford Field. I can be anywhere in the country and type in Ford Field, and it will tell me exactly how to get there, exactly how long it's going to take, and then the best route. It's amazing, and you can do that at any time of the day, anywhere. And everyone that has this now, totally, like, I take it for granted. I'm sure most people do. You don't really think about the convenience and how easy things are now, unless you really start thinking back to like when you didn't have them. And let's be honest, if you're 20 years old or younger, you didn't ever have a life without these things. Your life was always going on with these things. Like 20 years ago, 1998, if you were born in 98, by the time you were old enough to remember anything, you had already had the internet, you probably had Facebook, you definitely had GPS, you had cell phones everywhere, everybody had them. And it was funny, man, because when the cell phones started, you'd get a phone that was like, we called it the Zach Morris phone, because anybody that knows the show Saved by the Bell, he had one of these cell phones. The cell phone was like this big. You know, it was like, by the time when you held it up to your ear, it would like come down to here. And it had an antenna that you could sometimes pull out, sometimes push in, you know, like the whoosh. And now, and it was funny because the cell phones were huge. I guess like the very first cell phones were like part of a briefcase, like a car phone. People would have these things in their car, and it was in a big old suitcase. And that was the best you had as far as mobile phones go. Then it started getting like down to here. Then it started getting down to here. Then it was getting smaller and smaller. I remember having a Nokia phone. It was my very first phone. I had a Nokia phone. Then the only game that it was on there was definitely no social media. There was no internet, none of that. It was just a phone to call people and receive phone calls. And then it had one game on it. And it was called Snake. And anyone that knows this game, it's a terrible game. But it was all you had back then, so everyone played it. It was fun. And it's insane to me that, like, how quickly things advance now. Because if you think, man, people were like, for instance, you date back thousands of years, people were riding horses. You date back hundreds of years, people were still riding horses. There was no progression in the automotive industry until around the late 1800s, early 1900s. You had the train roll around on them tracks. Then you had the first vehicle was made. I gotta start sleeping more. Anyway, the first vehicle was made. I want to say it might have been a motorcycle, a two-wheel one, a two-wheel job like a bicycle. I'm not sure, and I don't want to butcher this because I literally have zero idea which the first vehicle ever made was. I can Google it after I get out of here. You guys can Google it. Somebody's gonna light me up for this not knowing. Anyway, though, that's neither here nor there. Since roughly the year 1900, it's been 118 years, and we've progressed so much in transportation. But yet, thousands of years, it was you either walked, ran, or rode a horse. And that was it. That was basically it. That was your only option for thousands of years. And then in the last 100 years, we got bicycles, motorcycles, four-wheelers, dirt bikes, planes, trains. Like, basically in the last 120, 125 years-ish, we have this boom of transportation. Like, we not only can you be on a motorcycle doing 200 miles an hour, but you can also, which was obviously not even thought of 200 years ago. Not even, I mean, nobody, I don't think anyone had the intention of going 200 miles an hour or beyond. I don't even know if that was a measurement back then. I don't even think that existed, miles per hour. I don't even know if that was a unit of measure back then. But you had that, you have that now ever since the boom of transportation. And so you go from thousands of years of everybody doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over for thousands of years to now you can fly out into outer space. Like, I can't. I'm not an astronaut, but it is possible. Like, there are people that have been out there. I've taken a plane across the country. What takes a couple hours used to take weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is incredible to me. This is really incredible to me because it's booming so quickly, and I don't know if people are actually stopping to, like, realize this. Like, are you actually thinking about how fast it goes? You went from 20 years ago to there being no cell phone. Basically, nobody had a cell phone. To now, I got grandparents that don't even know how to operate their cell phones, but they have them. I got grandparents that go on Facebook and parents that are like trying to figure out Snapchat filters and using the internet like crazy, watching YouTube videos, using Netflix. Like, you had to literally go to Blockbuster. Blockbuster was the only thing that there was really to, I mean, you had like these little mom and pop, like Hollywood Video and Family Video and like little tiny video stores that kind of sucked. But then Blockbuster back then was the Netflix now. You know, like Netflix ran Blockbuster right out of business. Blockbuster was the most convenient when it came to like getting new video games, new movies to watch, take home. You had all the candy and popcorn and drinks and all that there. You could make a whole nightly event out of just shooting up to Blockbuster real quick, getting something funny or some romantic comedy or a horror movie and going home, snuggling up and watching it. And that was a regular Friday night for you or Saturday night. But now you got Netflix where you can literally at any given time of the day just turn on Netflix and go, what do I want to watch? Oh, there's a new stand-up special. Bam, watching it. Oh, there's some cartoons for the kids. Bam, got it on there. Oh, there's a new movie that just came out a couple months ago or whatever. Bam, there it is. Let's watch that now. And it's like instant. You just, as soon as you log in and you find something you want to watch, you click play and bam, there it is. Most of all the old shows that had, like the whole seasons and stuff, you got all of them on there now. Like, you can watch probably like 10 seasons of Friends on there or something like that now. And it's just incredible, like, what you can do in such a short amount of time. Like 20 years. I'm thinking dating back, we'll say 20 just to make it a nice round number, 98, right? But say basically since the year 2000. I remember when the year 2000 seemed so futuristic and so just like groundbreaking, right? And now you look back and the year 2000 was like so ancient, it feels like. It does, and it was never like this. I mean, I got parents that will tell you that the first 30 years of their life, you've seen some technological advancements, but not much. Not a whole lot, at least. Nothing like extraordinarily crazy. But then in the last 20, things have moved so quick. Like, I remember our very first computer we ever got when I was a little kid. My very first computer my parents got. We had no idea how to use it. And now my dad's in his 60s, and he knows how to, like, save and delete and get new programs and how to use them and work his way around, like, the internet and YouTube and how to do all these things just like any normal, like, young kid would know how to do now, because the young kids are taught that right from the start. But he went from being an adult with no computer to being an adult that now knows how to do all these things on the computer and build his own computer and like work out his own issues. Like, if it's not loading right, or if the screen's not working right, or if it's frozen, or he has a virus, he knows how to do all those things. And it's commonplace for a kid now because they've grown up in this atmosphere where it's everywhere. I mean, everybody has computers, everyone knows it. But this man was an adult who did not have anything known as a computer, to all of a sudden, you fast forward 20 years later, he's got the most high-end, up-to-date stuff. He knows all the ins and outs about them and stuff. And And it's just it's mind blowing, man. The technology, the advancements in it, and how quick. Like I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you went on a dating site, you were kind of a loser if you had to go find somebody on a dating site. Now that's like the best way to find somebody to date or to, like, I found my wife through a dating site, and you would think, like, I mean, 20 years ago, I was like, in my own head, I was like, I'm not going on a dating site. You're a loser if you got to use those. I know how to go out and talk to people. I know how to be, I'm friendly. I know how to communicate with people. I'm not doing that. That's a waste of my time. Fast forward years later, you find yourself in a situation where all the ones you're meeting, like if you go out to the wrong places to meet somebody, it's a wrap. If you try to meet a woman at the bar, good chance she's always wanting to go to the bar, because I mean it's very rare for you to be a nice wholesome gentleman and find a nice wholesome lady at the bar. You know what I mean? It's not usually, if you're going out to the bar all the time and you find girls that are going out to the bar all the time, there's a good chance they just care about partying and getting wasted, and they're not looking for anything serious. They're not looking for their husband or their future father of their child. You know, that's not typically where you go to look for that now, right? Well, now the best part about the dating sites is you can go on there, type in everything about you that you think is worth noting, I guess, or mentioning to somebody, type out your interests, and then you get a whole list of people that either are compatible or they're not. And you just pick and choose. And now, what seemed crazy 15 years ago about the idea of like, oh, just meet somebody on a dating app and then just go sleep with them immediately, and then both people are good with that, and then both people move on with their lives, and then they go on about their day. That did not exist 15 years ago. There was no Tinder 15 years ago. And if there was, I never heard of it. I don't think anybody had heard of Tinder 15 years ago. I don't think it's been around that long. But back then, it was, even 15 years ago, there was a stigma about meeting somebody on a dating site and just using it just to hook up. It was not like that. Dating sites were purely meant for people that wanted, like maybe some guys were like, oh, I'll just meet a girl and I'll try to sleep with her. But you had to like manipulate them for that. It wasn't like an understanding. Tinder, it's an understanding. If you're on Tinder and you find somebody on Tinder, you both want the exact same thing. You both want a mutual bang session that means nothing to either of you, and then you both move on about your life. That's basically what Tinder's for now. And that wasn't the case 10, 15 years ago. That was just, it's such a different time, and it seems like every year is like a whole new season, a whole new like saga to the story. Whereas before, you could go years and like things would feel somewhat similar. It's just everything is so bang bang now, and it was not like this so long ago. And it's just, I don't know if I'm the only one thinking of this kind of stuff, man. It blows my mind, I can tell you that. And I don't hear anybody really acknowledge this. It's almost like you get acclimated with the way the world is just kind of rolling along, and you just kind of adapt. You just kind of run with it and just roll with the punches. You don't really think about, man, how was it before? Why did it get like this? Why are there problems in society when everyone is on the move and everyone wants things instantly and nobody has time for anything anymore? Everyone, like before, for instance, right? If you wanted to, I remember having to type up like reports for school, and then when you wanted to print it out, like this would take a while to print stuff. It would take like, dude, I don't know, it could take 15, 20 minutes to just, if you type something up and then you wanted to print it out, this thing could take 15 to 20 minutes just to print it out in black and white. And it was just like you'd have 4, 5, 6 pages of things, and it would take a while. This thing would just like chink, chink, chink. It would just slowly move along, barely at all. Now it's like you type up something and you hit print, and it feels like within a matter of, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds, everything is done. You're printed out, good to go, ink's dry, you're out there. Before, it took a while for it to print. When it did print, it took a while for it to dry. Then you had to like staple everything up, put it in a folder, turn it into school and all that. And then, man, it's not like this anymore. Now, you can, like schooling, for instance, right? You had to go to a place to do school. You had to like physically go. If you wanted to go to college, you had to physically go to a college, sit through the classes. If it wasn't on your time schedule, you had to make time. And if you didn't make time, you didn't do the class. Now, if you don't have the time, If, like, say you work at night and the only class there is available is at night, just do the class online. Most classes you can do online now. And some schools are built solely to be online, like University of Phoenix. There's no football team. There's no, there's no campus. There's a state. There actually is, believe it or not, a stadium. Now, it's funny that I use that as the example, but no, the Arizona Cardinals play, I believe, at isn't it University of Phoenix Stadium? I don't remember what it is now. I believe it is. I could be totally making this up. Somebody needs to spot check me on this. But anyhow, man, what I'm saying is, like, people were more in touch with nature. People were more in touch with patience. Nobody has patience for shit now. Nobody wants to wait on anything. Like, the longest you wait for anything now is when you go through the drive-thru at McDonald's. It's like 3-4 minutes you have to wait for your food, and then that, like, pisses people off. Like, before, even if you went through a drive-thru, you were kind of expecting it to take several minutes. Like, you were expecting your food to be prepared fresh. You were expecting to kind of wait a few minutes for it. Now it's like, if you're in the drive-thru for more than a minute without it moving, dude, you're fuming. You are so mad. And if the movie, like, if you go to that's another thing. Going to the store is almost a thing of the past. Almost everything you want now is you can get online. You can get everything online, and you can get it like next day air half the time for free now. I mean, when I was younger, if I wanted something, I would, and even if I could use the internet, half the time it was through catalogs. Half the time you had to look through a catalog. You had to find something in a magazine. You had to fill out this pamphlet, send it in. They would then send you a catalog in the mail. You would get the catalog. You would find what you want. You'd have to circle it. You could either call their number, or you could fill out on another little pamphlet the things you want, the serial number, the size, the color, all this stuff. You'd send it out in the mail. And then it would take them like a week or two to even get your your little form, and then it would take them like 2 to 3 weeks to sort all this stuff out, and then it would take them another 2 to 3 weeks to send it to you. You're talking by the time you actually found something you liked, and then sent all this stuff. From the moment you found something you liked to the moment it arrived at your house was like 6 to 8 weeks, like 2 months. By the 2 months nowadays. 2 months, you forgot you even ordered that. Like, that's real, man. That is real talk there. If you order something and it takes 2 months to arrive on your doorstep, you forgot you even ordered it or even looked it up. It'll arrive at your doorstep and you'll be like, what is it? Why is it? Oh, that's right. I forgot I did order that. It's like, if you don't get it in the first week, you're mad. You're like, dude, what's taking so long? I needed this yesterday. It's such a different time, man. Such a different time. And before, like this, right? I can literally, if I wanted to, I could literally live stream this. So therefore, as soon as I'm saying it, you're able to see it. I'm recording it, so I'm uploading it later and all that, but it's the same day usually. I usually record and then I upload like the same day. Sometimes it might be the next day, depending on the time of day or whatever, but it's like, you can say stuff into the microphone. You can say stuff right here, and then bam, it's immediately out there. You can hold up your cell phone now on either Instagram or Facebook, and you can go live. And like 99% of people don't ever want to hear you go live. They don't care what you have to say. Right? Like, for you to alert their phone and let people know that you just went live, most people are like, dude, I don't care. But some people do. So it's very necessary. It's very beneficial. It's just sometimes annoying. It just depends on who it is and what the topic's about. Sometimes you get these friends that just want to ramble about nonsense like I'm doing right now, and they want to do it live, so it alerts your phone, and then you are like, oh, well, if they're going live, what does that mean? And then you open it up, and it's like, hey, I'm here at Walmart, and I think that this product here, it's not real. Look at this. I mean, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And people are looking at that, and they're like, dude, I don't care. Like, you alerted me. You made me stop what I'm doing to look at that. So now it's gotten so watered down and so boring that half the time when it says, like, so-and-so went live, I look at it and I go, next. Like, I don't care, dude. I don't care most of the time. Sometimes I do. Depends if I like you. Let's be honest. We're all biased a little bit. But that being said, dude, it is just mind-blowing, the technology we have. Like, I remember when I was young, and like, say in the 90s, if NASA announced, hey, we're going to go to Mars, we're going to start building a spaceship to go to Mars. And say it's 1990. In 1990, they say, hey, we're building a spaceship. We're going to go to Mars. By 2012, they should finally have it done and they should be on their way. Like, it would take 10, 15, 20 years to like build something and send somebody out. Now it's like, hey, we're going to start building a spaceship so we can go to Mars. And then like next Thursday, it's done and they're out there. No, it's way over exaggerated. But the point is, everything moves so quick, man. Everything is on high demand. We have zero attention spans. We have zero patience for anything. Everything has got to be done immediately. And it's so convenient and it's so great. But there's a part, like, I feel like we're losing something in this. You know, I feel like almost like, not necessarily that we're losing our humanity, but almost like we're definitely losing our patience, but we're losing a part of ourselves that is like, that's compassionate for things, like compassionate for the patience that it takes to achieve something great. Like now, we get pissed off about something real quick. We want to immediately rant about it on Facebook and Instagram, send it out to somebody, and then have the whole world. And then by the time everyone looks at it and judges you for what you just said, you realized in your head, like, man, you know what? I'm not even really that mad. Maybe I shouldn't even have said it. Like, that's the problem. That's where we lose stuff now. Like, if you were pissed about something in the past, if somebody did something wrong to you and you really wanted to tell somebody and get it out to the world, you'd have to write it down like in a letter. Or like call somebody and tell somebody. And if they didn't answer, then you had to either leave a voicemail, which was back then just leaving a message on the answering machine. You had to leave a voicemail for these people, and then it would only reach one person because unless they shared it with everyone. But you'd be calling somebody directly. You'd be writing a letter. And half the time, by the time you got done doing any of this like strenuous stuff or time-consuming things, by the time you were done, you were like, is it even worth it? Maybe not. I'm fine now. And then you'd move on. And I think people were genuinely, as a whole, happier in public. You know what I mean? Like, there might have been more things to struggle with. But even then, I don't know if it was necessarily more things. It was just different things. But you were required to have some form of patience. You were required to somewhat think before you act. And now we've gotten in this habit where everything is so bang, bang that when you are mad about something or you have something on your mind or you want to share something, you say it, you get it out there to the world. People judge you like crazy, and then if you realize later that it was that maybe you shouldn't have said those things, too bad, man. It's out there now. It's out there. What you do every minute matters, especially when you share that with people. And you gotta think. You gotta stop and think, man. I try not to, and I'm guilty of this as much as anybody, but I at least consciously try to think to myself, is that something that really needs to be shared with everyone? You know, like, say me and my wife have something that we're arguing about, or me and my mom or dad, or like you and somebody close to you, right? If you have somebody that you're really close with and you're arguing about something or you're bothered by something, it's so easy to just rant about it on Facebook. And this is why I hate Facebook. This is one of the many reasons why I just hate Facebook anymore. Because Donald Trump will say something in the media that people want to like either love or hate, right? And they immediately start, look at, I can't believe what he said, or hey, can you believe this? Look at how great he is, or whatever. And they're typing this stuff out, and then they just send it. And then after it's sent, and the whole world's able to see it, then they stop and think, they're like, man, was it really worth it? Did I need to do that? I'm just stirring up the pot, and is it necessary? I'm all for stirring up the pot. I'm all for riling things up and getting, conversations started and getting opinions out there in the world. I'm all for that, but you got to think first. Pick and choose your battles. Is this one worth, as a wise man once said, is this one worth dying on the hill for? Is this the hill you want to die on? And basically what that means, for those that don't know, is this the topic that you really want everyone to judge you on? Is this the one that that will demand your legacy is built around? Because sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes we say things that we rant because we're pissed and we're like, I don't care who hears me. And then you say it, and then after you calm down, you're like, oh, why did I say that? Oh, I'm stupid. That's why. That's why I said it, because I'm an idiot. But It's just so easy now. It's so easy. And like I remember being young and I remember all the adults when I would get like a new toy, all the adults were like, "Man, where was this when I was a kid?" And you know who says that now? Me. I see the same shit. I'm just as jealous as they are. I see kids, I see 5-year-old, like not even 5-year-old kids playing on an iPad. And I'm like, F that kid. He don't deserve it. I don't care how good he was today. He didn't deserve that, you know? Like I don't get mad at the kid. I mean, I do temporarily, but I don't rant about it on Facebook. I don't go F all kids, like screw them all. They're so spoiled, whatever. Every year that goes by, there's new shit for kids to like get into that is not what you had when you were growing up. I even see these memes that are like, kids nowadays be like this, and when I was young, I was playing with rocks. All right, well, times change, dude. I mean, that's bottom line. Like, if you think you had it bad, imagine how kids 400 years ago had it, or 800, or 9,000, right? Like, dude, we had sticks. And if you didn't have a stick around, you were bored for a while. Think of it, like, that's another thing I don't think people think about. Bring this one up in the crowd, right? How many people how long do you think people had to be bored for back in the day? Long time ago. Like, think about when, like, people first started, like, the civilization first started, right? Thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands, however long it's been. Whenever it started, think about how boring days would be. I think there were spurts. I think what happened was everything kind of went in spurts. Like, for instance, when you first started seeing sunsets, right? Because there was really nothing else. There was the earth and then the sun. The sun would come up, go down. Then the moon would come up and go down. Then the sun would come up and go down. And then the moon would come up and go down. And there was just a cycle of that, right? And I'm sure when you first started realizing those things and first started seeing that, it was like, man, look at the beauty of this. Look at how amazing all this stuff is. Look at it. And then after like a month, you're like, all right, I've seen it. Then now what? Well, then you had to go hunt for food. You had to go scavenge for food, like picking berries and plants and things like that. And then maybe at first, when you first started doing that, that stuff was like fun and cool. And you were like, you're curious and you were like, oh man, what's that over there? Well, let's see what that's like. And you'd eat it. And then you're like, wow, that's crazy. Or man, that just killed Frank. And and you would learn like, okay, you can eat that. You can't eat that. Well, then what though? Then it was like, then there's the animals. Well, not every animal is like a dog, where they just want to love up on you and lay with you and play with you. Some animals want to eat you. Some animals want you dead. So I guess times weren't so boring because you were, scared for your life and you were on the run and you had to fend off, animals for your family to keep them alive. But in downtime, man, my nose is itching like crazy. These allergies. I hate Michigan. I love Michigan. Hate Michigan. But think about your downtime back then. Your downtime had to just be just junk. Like your downtime had to be you thinking. You didn't have books to read. You didn't know how to read. Like if you happen to live in an area that happened to have, we'll say 100 people in a whole village. Well, you might be able to walk around and like try to communicate with them once you learned how to communicate in whatever language that was. Or whatever they did to communicate with each other. But imagine like the cave people and stuff, or like people that didn't have language. Like you just basically were like, okay, in your mind, because you didn't have language to speak it, but in your mind you basically thought to yourself, man, I'm hungry. There's nothing around here. I can either eat dirt, which does nothing for me nutritionally, or I can go 2 miles over to where that bush was, where there was strawberries, and I can go pick them and then carry all that shit back 2 miles and then hope that nobody's seen what I have so that I can hoard it all to myself. And if anybody happened to see it, I'm going to have to share it with the whole damn village. And then by that time, I did all this work for nothing. I spent my entire day, sun up to sundown, finding berries, picking them, bringing them back, just for everyone else to eat them. And now I'm left with a couple things. I'm still hungry. And what did they do for me? Nothing. So times just had to suck, man. And now, if you're hungry, you can literally go unless you live out in the sticks, you can probably go within a couple miles to find food. And if you're hungry, good chance that you can eat within a half an hour. There's a good chance that the most it's going to take is a half hour to an hour of your life. And then you can eat. Whereas back then it was like if you were hungry, it's probably too late. You probably weren't finding food. You probably weren't eating. You're probably done. Not to mention the diseases. No doctors. If you got a disease of any kind, if you had any form of illness, you either died or you slowly got better. Man, it was just such crazy. It was just different times, man. Different stuff. And I think about that kind of stuff. You know, I think about like how technology has helped us and how technology screws us hard. Think about this, man. Like right now, you have parents that are literally upset that their kid just sits in front of a YouTube videos or Instagram or plays video games all day. And now you got virtual reality coming out where it's just, I've heard about this shit my whole life about virtual reality. It was talked about since I was 5, like it was going to be just around the corner. I'm 35 now, and it's just now becoming a mainstream thing where everybody's starting to get virtual reality. So 30 years it took, which now that I'm thinking about it, is relatively a long period of time in today's society. 30 years is a long period of time for talking about something and then finally making it happen. Like there were shitty versions of virtual reality and stuff, but nothing that was so mainstream and felt real enough to like be marketable. And it took a while to get there. But think about this, dude. I guarantee you within the next 20 years, like it's 2018 right now. By 2038, like almost everybody is going to have access to augmented reality where you have either contact lenses, chips inside of you. I doubt you'll be using these big clunky headsets that that virtual reality uses now, because even those are sleek and modified compared to the old stuff. And think about it, man. 20 years from now, nobody's going to want to wear a big old clunky headset. They're going to want something that you can just be like, just pop this right there and pop that one right there. And then you're going to be good to go. And now all you have to do is be like, to turn it on. And now you're out there. You're in this world, this realm. And think about this. From that, you're also going to be able to sit in your room, see and do whatever you think about, because that's where the technology's headed. But you'll also be able to do all your online shopping, all your homework, everything. You will literally have almost no reason to leave your bedroom. Maybe to get up, make food, and go to the bathroom and stuff like that. But you won't really have a reason to leave your house unless you're the type of person that wants to be out in the world talking to people and mingling. Like there's going to be so many people. You think parents are pissed now that their kids are sitting in front of video games? Wait until like 20 years from now, that generation that's adults, I guess. I wait for like the kids that are being born right now today. Wait for them to be 18, 20, 30 years old and see what they're doing with their life. People are going to be just like people that I'm talking to now. You're going to be devastated by what society turns into then, because barely anybody's going to want to talk to each other. They're only going to want to talk through the computer. You're not going to have a bunch of kids getting together for birthday parties and playing. They're all going to be doing like video, interactive, augmented reality type of things. Augmented reality and virtual reality. And there is a difference. Augmented reality means that, like for instance, say you have all the things in front of you and you can see all the things in front of you, but you can also see things that aren't there with it, like kind of blended in with it. Virtual reality is like when you block out everything around you and you're in like this other world. And I think you'll have access to do both, is what I really think is going to happen. I think everybody's going to have these contacts in, or everybody's going to have like bionic eyes where they can just do these things and see these things on the fly. We're going to have a whole like generation of cyborgs. Like people that are just not half machine, but like you're going to have things that alter your abilities. And even right now, if you think about it, we already have a slight version of that with people with pacemakers and amputees that have different like legs and arms and like robotic hands and things to grip and grab and do stuff. Like people are already, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about my nose. People are already in this world of like partially robotically altering their bodies, if that's a word or a thing. But think about 20 years from now, 50, 100 years from now, what it's going to be like. It's impossible. Like people 100 years from now are going to be looking at us and being like, what do you mean you drove somewhere? Why didn't you just teleport? Or why didn't you just blink your eyes and instantly arrive or something? Like what do you mean that you had to that you had to call somebody or text somebody or update social media. What is that? What's social media? Like, your life is social media now. Everything around you is instantly there. And it's just, I think it's really going to screw up. I think it's going to be beneficial in a lot of ways, of course. I think that, anything that you want is bam right there. If you have any fantasy of being at, hey, I want to see what Shanghai looks like, or I want to see what the Virgin Islands are like. Okay, we'll just load that program up, and in a matter of seconds, bam, you blink, and there you are. Now you're virtually there. You can virtually live out anything that you want, and it would be incredible. It'd be amazing. But at the same time, I think you're going to lose part of humanity there with that. The communication. Right now, I think that the reason so many things move so quickly is because so many people communicate and they learn and they move forward with things. I think in that world, you're going to have so many people, not everybody, of course. Not everybody's ever going to be on board with one thing, but then again, that's BS too, because almost everybody uses a phone. Almost everybody wants to talk or like speaks with each other or has some, like, if you don't talk to anybody at all ever, it's probably because either you're a loser, or you choose not to. That doesn't mean you're definitely a loser. But if you don't talk to anybody ever, there's a good chance it's because you're either socially awkward and you have no idea how to speak with people, which I'm starting to see more of that because of the fact that people don't need to speak to everyone anymore. In the past, you had to. If you wanted to learn, say right now, for instance, right? Right now, if you want to learn how to make a strawberry cheesecake, you can literally within 2 minutes, you could type it in, research on Google, hit enter or whatever, and it pops up all these different recipes, and will tell you all the ingredients, how much to do, what times, where to bake it, what heat to bake it at, and all this stuff. You have all this like instant access. Whereas 20 years ago, if you wanted to learn how to do that, you had to either go to the store and buy a cookbook and hope that the cookbook had it in it, or you had to like go to the library and like go through a card catalog and find research on it, or you had to like be lucky enough to see some kind of a movie that was made about it or something. You didn't just be able to just go boop, 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 and within 2 minutes know everything you need to know. And that's instant now. You have that. 20 years later, you have all of that. Imagine what the future holds. Imagine what you can do in the future with the technology that's coming out. Like, we have smart car, like these cars that are now learning how to drive on their own. And I know that there's going to be fatalities along the way. There's definitely going to be issues or faults in the mechanisms where it's going to not act right, or it's a machine. Machines are never perfect forever. They always eventually have flaws and break down. So I do feel like there's going to be some rough patches in the technology, but there's also going to be things happening that are just so amazing, that are just like think about this. We're just now getting into the cars being able to drive themselves, right? Imagine when planes are starting to fly themselves. Imagine when you can go get on a flight and there is no pilot. The plane takes off by itself, raises the landing gear by itself, gets you exactly where you need to be by itself, lowers the landing gear by itself, and then lands that hog by itself. That's going to happen at some point. It might not be in the next 5, 10, 15 years, but it's going to happen at some point. And I can't even imagine where the technology of like cell phones and the internet and things like that. Like right now, we've gone from a time where, like in my lifetime, that I can clearly remember as an adult, like basically as an adult or an older child, to now, I've gone from barely knowing what a computer is or does, barely having, like, if you wanted to talk to a friend, you had to call their parents and say, hey, is Bobby home? Can I talk to little Steve? And they're like, oh no, he's outside with his friends. And you're like, oh, can you tell him to call Adam when he gets home or when he gets back in? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then you'd have to wait for his call. And if you weren't around at the time, he would call your parents. And then you'd have to, if you weren't home, you had to call. It was a big game of phone tag. Now, all you got to do is just basically, you send that person a text message. Whenever they're available, they'll call you, they'll respond. And whenever you're available, you respond. And you can keep this going forever. Like, conversations typically sometimes don't end now. There's some, you know what I'm talking about. Most people have at least one thread in their phone, one one text conversation in their phone that just never really seems to end. There is no like, okay, bye, and then like you wait a couple of days and then, hey, how's it going? There's somebody in your phone probably, or there's at least one thread where you and your friends just kind of randomly just keep every now and again just post stuff. And there's never a bye or a hello. It's just a bam, that's the newest post. Bam, that's the newest text. And these things happen all the time now. And I mean, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like 20 years from now. Like, you got GPS with things, you got auto cars, you got your cell phones. I mean, like, you got apps that do everything now. And already a lot of kids don't know how to socialize and hang out and be friends because they're spending so much time sitting by themselves playing video games or studying or watching YouTube videos and stuff. And it's just the time that goes on in the things that are happening so quickly. It's just the world is changing so fast and it's almost impossible to keep up with. But yeah, you got to try. I mean, you're either going to go with it or it's going to pass you right by. And here's the thing, man. I got into the computer game late because I thought, like, I was old enough to where I wasn't constantly involved with computers and I didn't care about computers. Computers is like a language. When you got to learn all these things, it's like learning a language, and I didn't care to learn it for a long time. It took me a while. Like, half my friends were like damn near computer whizzes. My dad was even a computer whiz before I ever learned stuff. Like, he still knows more about computers than I do. And he's in his 60s. So because he got on that, he saw the trend. He saw that, oh man, the computers, this is the future. This thing can do damn near everything. And it's only going to keep getting better and better and better. And so he jumped on it right away and he learned. Me, I was like, I don't care. I don't want to sit in front of a computer all day. I don't want to do that. I don't want my eyes to be staring at a screen constantly. And I just don't feel the need for that. I don't care about that kind of stuff. So I didn't learn it. And then later on, I was like, man, I kind of need to do this though. Like, there's certain things I have to do on the computer. Like, it's getting to the point where it's inevitable. You have to be on a computer to do everything. And like the idea of paperwork is starting to go away. Almost everything is becoming digital. So imagine if 100 years from now, there is no such thing as paperwork. There are no books. Everything is digital. And then bam, power goes out. Dude, the world would be an absolute chaos. It would literally be like if a nuclear war went off and everyone had to start over. It'd be like an apocalypse. Like, everyone has everything on their computers now. Everything. Your phone is a small computer. It's a mini computer that has everything. And like, I mean, I can do my taxes, pay my bills, research anything, find out anything new, communicate with anyone, get all my emails and all my information, and you can do everything from your cell phone now. And imagine if all that went dark. If everything just shut right off. And now you have no choice. See, today we're somewhat prepared for that because you still have catalogs and paperwork and manuals and dictionaries and encyclopedias, and those things still do exist. So worst case scenario, you could go to a place that had these things and you could find it, and then you could kind of start civilization over. It would suck. It would be awful, but you could kind of get by like that. But imagine 20, 30, 40 years from now when there are no forms of paperwork ever, because there's no reason to. There's no reason to keep file cabinets and paperwork and catalog. Like, we have paper shredders. There's almost more paper shredders than there are file cabinets now. Like, think about that. That's so wild. Like, we're shredding things faster than we can store it. So eventually it's all going to be gone. Man, it's nuts though. It really is. And I think about that stuff. Like, how are you going to do your grocery shopping? You know what the kind of jobs are going to be like in the future? You're going to have jobs like where you're still going to have restaurants and fast food. I think you're still going to have food places. I think those places will never really go away. I don't think. Maybe they will. What am I talking? Maybe they will. I don't know. I haven't read the future. I don't know the future. What I do know is that everything you want to eat can be brought to you. It's getting to the point. I remember, dude, when I was younger, everyone thought like, man, imagine how awesome it would be, dude, if we were able to just sit here and get high and drunk and then call Taco Bell and they could just deliver it. Now they do. They do that now. I don't know about Taco Bell, but I know Wendy's does. I know that there are fast food places that deliver. I know that there's grocery stores that will deliver all your groceries. I know that Amazon will deliver any product on the face of the earth basically to you. So imagine what 20 years is going to be like. Because this stuff took hundreds, if not thousands of years to get to this point. And now, because of communication, because of the internet, because of technology, because of computers, everything is like, imagine what this will be like if we could just do this. And then next year, now we can. Like, if you go back into this, if you go back and watch the old 70s and 80s versions of like Star Trek and Star Wars, half the stuff that they could do then was futuristic and wasn't possible in those days. But because they were wonderful ideas in these TV shows and these movies, people decided, like, man, imagine if we had that. Let's try to make it. Like, the whole thing of, like, if anybody knows Star Trek, there's where they would be like, beam me up, Scotty, and it was like a teleporter, and it was almost like a little cell phone, and he would be like, like, give me this place. And then like, it was basically the beginning stage of a cell phone. It was a walkie-talkie. Only it could travel across galaxies. And we basically have that now. I don't know about traveling across galaxies, but it can certainly travel across the Earth. And we have satellites everywhere, up top, like anywhere in the world. It can tell you what time it is, where you're at, like location-wise. It can like ping your phone for like your GPS. It can, and this is what blows my mind too. And most people don't even think about this at all. Most people don't know that this is possible, right? But think about this. If I'm on the phone with you and I'm in Michigan and you're in China, anything that I say to you, this is how quick things move. This is how fast things are, man. This is crazy, but it's real. Try it out. You'll find that I'm not lying. If I called somebody in China right now and I talked to them over the phone, there is the slightest, tiniest little bit of lag. And what I mean is, like, if I say something, if I say, hey, how are you? Almost immediately they hear it and they say, oh, I'm not bad. How are you? And then almost immediately I hear it back. Like, but what's really happening, and you don't really think about this so you break it down, you speak into this device. This device has to not only hear what you're saying, but obviously record it, because it's not just like a string on a cup where you just go, bah, 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 and then somebody at the other end hears it, even though that doesn't work for hundreds of miles or whatever. But you speak into this device. It then sends that recording up to a satellite. The satellite then has to relocate where the other person is and then send that message to them. And then, like, play that message into their ear. And then they hear the message. They say one back. It goes back up to a satellite and then locates where you are, comes back to you, and then you hear this message play out in your ear, and it's instant. Like, think of how fast that moves. You talk about the speed of light. That's like bam, bam, and it's across the world. Like, you can't grasp how fast that has to travel, because it's not just like me speaking from here to here. It's not just like bam, bam. It's not like that. It's traveling that quick, only it's traveling thousands and thousands of miles up in space and then back down. It's mind-blowing, dude. It is mind-blowing how fast and immediate and how badass the technology is. And I think we take it for granted. I think a lot of us are just like so used to our cell phones and social media and YouTube videos and the internet, and that it just becomes a part of life. And then you're just like, kids growing up are just accustomed to thinking, well, that's what life is. This is how it works. That's not how it worked for all of time until just like yesterday, basically. Like, for all of time, things were so slow and monotonous, and like, you could go your whole lifetime and only make a couple small discoveries. Now you learn stuff at such a crazy fast pace that the littlest things can make somebody look and feel so dumb. And it's like, dude, the thing that makes you feel dumb now is like something that nobody knew for thousands of years. Like, the idea of understanding your GPS. is not something that anybody could have known 1,000 years ago. Nobody in the entire world had any idea of what a GPS system is, how it works, what it can be like, what it can do, what it stands for. I still don't really know. I think it's Global Positioning System or something like that, right? I mean, I'm probably wrong there. I think it has something to do with positioning system or service, one of the two, and maybe global, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know, man. It blows my mind, and I don't think enough people really think about it or talk about it. And it was on my mind today. I was talking about it with somebody, and they even told me when I was saying all this stuff. They're like, yeah, I never thought about that. I never think about that kind of stuff. And maybe if you stop and think about it, you're like, well, yeah, duh, common sense. But it's not, though, because nobody really thinks about it. They're just like, you're so used to just having it. You know, like when I turned 16 and I got a car, it was like, well, yeah, everybody does that. Nobody did that in the year 1900. Nobody did that 100 years ago. In 1918, nobody did that. Like, nobody turned 18 and was like, well, of course nobody turned 16 and was like, well, of course I get a car. That's what you do when you turn 16. You get your license and you get a car and you drive around and you have the ball of your life, right? The best time of your life. No one on earth basically did that 100 years ago. Imagine 1,000. Imagine 2,000 or 3,000. Like, you're talking, when you think about how buildings are being built now and then how the pyramids were supposedly built back then, it is just like you could build 100 pyramids in the time, and right now, you could build 100 pyramids in the time it took them to build like a quarter of one back then. It's insane how fast everything moves in the technology and how much we expect things to go quick like that, right? Like, we all expect things to be fast. Like, you call to get a pizza, all right? 100 years ago, I don't think pizza existed 100 years ago. Maybe it did. But even if it did, you made your own damn pizza. You didn't call Jets. You know, you didn't call Papa Romano's or Little Caesars. Now, pizza's gotten to the point now where even a hot and ready from Little Caesars, you can drive to a hot and ready that's probably right around, or drive to a Little Caesars that's probably right around the corner or somewhere local, somewhere somewhat close. Walk in, say, I want a hot and ready. They go, okay, it'll be $5 and something cents for tax. You hand them the money. They hand you the pizza. You walk out. You're literally in there a minute, like 1 minute, and you got a full meal for $5 for your whole family, basically. It's incredible, man. And you can call a pizza place, Hungry Howie's, Jets, all these different pizza places, right? And the Papa John's. And you can go, hey, man, I want this kind of pizza with these kinds of toppings and this kind of crust. And then I also want some breadsticks and I want a pop and all this. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem, man. It'll be there in 30 minutes. And if it's not, it's free. And half the time they don't do that anymore. But they're there in 30 minutes. And you got pizza and breadsticks and treats and all kinds of good stuff. Bam, almost instantly. You got a full meal, 30 minutes. You didn't even have to make it. Or leave your house. You didn't have to put forth any effort except dialing the number, telling somebody else, and then you have to get up and answer your door and then pay for it. And half the time, say you got a credit card now or a debit card. Sometimes when you pay, you can just pay for it over the phone. The guy gives you the pizza and you say, hey man, tips already, you already got all that. That's all good for you. He walks to your door, he knocks, you open the door, he's like, here's your stuff. You're like, thanks, you have a good one. And then you turn around, slam the door in his face, don't give him shit, and then you walk inside and you eat. Like, that's incredible. And it's like it's so common and basic now that most people are like, well, yeah, dude, that's of course. And it's not, of course, though. That's the thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is it's not. And none of this stuff that I'm talking about is a situation where you should think, oh, of course. I mean, this is the natural progression of life. This is the natural evolution of humankind. We are moving forward. Things are getting faster. We're expecting things now. If you text somebody and they don't immediately text you back, you're like, come on, dude. I know you got your phone next to you. And it's like, yeah, but even if they do have what people don't realize. I remember there was a time when you would text somebody and then, or you would call somebody and they don't answer. You'd leave them a voicemail. They wouldn't call back for 5 minutes and you were like judging them. You were like, come on, I know this person. They always got their phone next to them. But now things are so fast and immediate and busy. Everything is bam, 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 bam. Everything is happening so much and so often and so common that even if you got your phone sitting right in front of your face and somebody texts you, there's a chance you're like, man, I ain't got time to text them back. I got stuff to do. Because you know it's probably going to turn into a whole thing. But man, it blows my mind, dude. It really does. And I never get sick of thinking, like I never get sick of thinking about how things used to be and how things are gonna be. And it's just wild, man. It really is. Like the medicine, how quickly you can get treated for things now. Oh, man, it's just the future of technology is a mind-blowing, mind-boggling thing. And it really there's always a give and take, man. It always makes me, I don't know, impressed, inspired. I don't know the right words to use. All of them, really. None of them were wrong. It's just you can do so much so quickly. Like I never would have thought about doing this 20 years ago. Like there's no way I would have thought to myself, hey, sit down alone, record yourself talk for God knows how long, and then just give it to, and then, share it with somebody. Like if I walked around, if I had a video camera and I set it up in my bedroom when I was 15, and I just recorded myself talking to the camera, and then I went over to my friend's house, and there was like, say, 3 or 4 of us there, and I said, hey man, I talked about something, I want you guys to watch it. They'd be like, get out of here, you weirdo. That's like, it was an absurd idea 20 years ago. This was like crazy. You were nuts if you did this kind of stuff 20 years ago. People thought you were off your rocker. They'd lock you up and they'd give you all kinds of medicines for it. But now it's so commonplace. Like so many people do this and share this kind of stuff with the world. But I don't know, man. I'm trying to bring like some kind of a unique aspect or mindset to this, because I really don't think that people think about some of these things, man. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I know I'm going to ramble on about shit that most people will always think about, and they're like, well, yeah, no shit, dude. Well, then, all right, you can keep scrolling and move on, but that's not what this is. That's not what I'm talking about today. Like, this is some future technology stuff, and it's weird to me. It really is weird, because a part of me is grateful that all these things are moving so quickly, and like, if you want something, bam, you got it. It's almost immediate. That is so awesome. At the same time, though, man, there's a part of me that feels like it's ruining society because of the way we treat people and the way we talk to each other and the lack of patience now. It's really detrimental to how we function in society. And I'm just curious to see where it's going to go. I'm curious to see what it's going to be like in 2038, 2040. If we're even still here. You know what I mean? Like the way things are moving along so quickly, it's amazing we're still here at all. I mean, like, almost every country in the world has nuclear weapons now, and let's be honest, not every country gets along. It's amazing to me that something hasn't gone on yet. Something hasn't happened. But here we are. We just keep trucking along. And I feel like every time something crazy changes to make things weird, people are really good about adapting. But I just don't know what form that's going to take, you know? People are going to adapt. Things are going to change, and people are going to adapt, and everyone's going to get used to things. But I think that society functions best when it's communicating and talking with each other. And I just see this pattern going where people are talking, but not to each other. They're just kind of talking and hoping that everyone just hears it. You know, like if you think about social media and Instagram and Facebook, think about at its core what you're really doing at the end of the day. When you go on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or Twitter or Tumblr or whatever, you really post things that you like, you post thoughts, you post ideas, but you're not talking to people. You're not like communicating with people. You're just telling people shit and hoping that they hear it or agree. They like your comment, they heart it, they thumbs up it, whatever. And half the time people are like, oh, I happen to like that person, or I have a crush on that person, so I'll just like it anyway, even if I don't agree. And it's like an empty, it's an empty form of communicating with people. There's no real empathy there. There's no real, like, connecting. It's mostly just, I'm going to share some nonsense. Hopefully people agree. Some people don't. Hopefully people care. And depending on how, like, good you are at doing that, more people will want to join in and hear what you have to say. And some people agree, some people don't. And if they don't agree, half the time with such a short attention span nowadays, half the people are like, oh, I agreed with 100 of his posts, but this one post I don't agree with, so I'm unfollowing him or her. And it's to the point where, like, it's a very, I don't know, man, it's just not, to me, it's just not a very smart way of building a society. It's really not, because you have so many people with so many different views, and instead of like sitting down and communicating and hashing these things out, people are just like, I don't like this, and here's why, bam. And then some people are going to read it and be like, yeah, I agree, like. Or some people are going to be like, yeah, I agree, and then they don't like. They just keep scrolling. And then some people are like, yeah, you're an idiot. And then they comment and they tell you how much they hate you, and then they unfollow you. And then there's other people that are just like, this person sounds like an idiot, but I'm not going to tell them and correct them. I want them to keep being an idiot. And then they just keep scrolling. It's just not a very like productive way to conduct society. If you ask me, it's just not. And then I think that we're still seeing the beginning stages of this, man. Like I said, it's been 20 years since cell phones even became like a thing, really. Imagine when Instagram's been, or social media has been around for 50 years. It hasn't. It's only been around for like a decade, like plus, like 1 to 2 decades not even 2 decades. It has not been around since 98. I think everything has been after the year 2000, as far as like social media and all that stuff, YouTube and all that. I don't remember any of that in the year 1999. That wasn't like, you didn't think about that kind of stuff. It wasn't even thought of back then. So I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy on this. I don't know. Please, you let me know what you think. Where do you guys see the future going? Where do you see, am I wrong on this for thinking that society is kind of in some way, shape, or form a little bit slightly doomed? You know, I don't think it's like the end. I don't think it's like that detrimental, but I do think that it's getting worse, and I don't know the way it's headed. Right now, it might not be a problem, right? Or it might not be a huge problem. But I don't know that in the year 2050 that we have a functioning society that can get by. We might go back to tribalism. Because everyone's gonna be so divided and in their own little bubble, in their own little groups, that it's almost gonna be like little factions of tiny tribal like things where one tribe is against this tribe and this tribe's against that tribe, and like nobody can agree and everyone wants to attack each other. Like, I don't know if we can agree. Like, the more the world is being connected, the more people are getting divided. That's what it feels like. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think, man. Comment below. Find me on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, please. Really Rich Adam, Really Rich podcast, really rich. Find Really Rich somewhere. It's out there, right? And please tell me what you think, man. I can't be alone on this. I can't be the only one thinking about this stuff. But I don't know. Please let me know what you think, man. I don't know. It's just a crazy time. It's a crazy world we're living in. And I think we need a lot of help. I think we are definitely in need of a lot of help. We need to plan this. We need to talk about this. We need to figure this shit out on the fly. But we need to get ahead of the game. I really think we need to get ahead of this before it gets too bad to where it's too far gone. So I don't know. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, do whatever you can. Let's get to the bottom of this together. I'll see you guys soon.